So, it has now been passed. Trump's sweeping relief and immigration bill just made it through the House of Representatives by a single vote, 215 to 214. Barely, but that's all it takes. This is a massive development, and today we're going to dive deep into exactly what's in this bill and what it means for millions of Americans moving forward. From tax cuts to new Medicaid rules, food assistance reforms, military expansion, and yes, even mass deportations. This is one of the most aggressive policy pushes we've seen in recent years. And here's the good news. If you were one of those people hoping this would pass quickly, you're in luck. Speaker Mike Johnson originally set a target to have this through by July 4th. But guess what? We're almost a full month ahead of schedule. That's right. If the Senate moves swiftly, this could be finalized well before Independence Day. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The Senate still needs to vote. But from what we're hearing, that part looks like a done deal too. So let's break down what's really in this bill, how it impacts you, and why it's causing both celebration and concern. First, if you enjoy these breakdowns and daily updates, all I ask is that you take 2 seconds, scroll down, and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who need to hear this. All right, let's get into it. Here's the headline. Republican-led House passes Trump agenda bill by a single vote. That one vote margin made all the difference. Speaker Mike Johnson, smiling from ear to ear, announced the victory after weeks of political wrangling. He'd promised to get this done before lawmakers went on recess for Memorial Day, and despite the odds, he delivered. Now, some people think this bill was rushed. But let's be clear, the July 4th deadline wasn't written in stone, it was a symbolic target. The real goal was to keep momentum on Trump's agenda and build pressure on the Senate to act quickly. And based on the current buzz, it looks like that pressure is working. One of the big elements in this package is the extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017. Yes, those same tax cuts that gave most Americans a break. Those are back on the table for long-term renewal. But here's the twist. By pushing this through early, there's now concern that certain benefits might get phased out or altered sooner than expected. So while the bill brings good news on taxes, there are strings attached, and we'll explain more about that in a moment. Another major component? Trump's immigration enforcement plan? This bill unlocks new funding to massively expand the military and carry out large-scale deportations. For months, the Trump administration has faced one major roadblock: money. They had the legal framework and the executive orders, but not enough funding to execute at scale. That changes now. Interestingly, part of the original immigration strategy included incentives for self-deportation, offering up to $1,000 for individuals who voluntarily left the country. But with no proper funding behind it, people were left confused and skeptical. Were they really going to get paid? Or were they being tricked into leaving with nothing? This new bill puts real dollars behind the plan and gives the administration the power to enforce immigration policy far more aggressively than before. But that's not all. This bill also fulfills two of Trump's most talked about campaign promises, eliminating federal taxes on tips and overtime work. For millions of service workers and hourly employees, that's huge. Over time, pay will now be tax-free, but only the overtime portion. Your base wages will still be taxed at normal rates. And when it comes to tips, the exemption applies up to $25,000 a year, provided your total income is under $160,000. So yes, there are some income caps and limitations, but this is still a massive shift in how income is taxed for working-class Americans. Now let's talk about the other side of this bill, the cuts. Because for everything this bill gives, it also takes away. One of the most controversial parts? A massive $700 billion cut to the Medicaid program. To qualify moving forward, able-bodied adults without dependents will need to meet new work or community engagement requirements. At least 80 hours per month of work, job training, or education. And this doesn't even kick in until January 1st, 2029, after President Trump's current term would end. But still, this is a long-term restructuring of Medicaid, and many advocacy groups are already pushing back. On top of that, the bill introduces stricter eligibility checks. People on Medicaid would now need to verify their status twice a year instead of just once. That may sound small, but for people struggling with paperwork, mobility, or access to technology, it could mean falling through the cracks. But that's not all. The bill also slashes the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, better known as SNAP or food stamps, by $267 billion over the next 10 years. and it shifts the financial burden to the states. Starting in 2028, states would be required to pay 5% of benefit costs and 75% of administrative costs. Right now, the federal government covers everything. So, for states already facing budget issues, this could lead to reduced services or tighter eligibility rules. Work requirements for food aid are also getting stricter. Currently, able bodied adults without dependents must meet work requirements up to age 54. Under this new bill, that age limit rises to 64. That's right, people who are 1 year away from retirement would still be required to work to get food assistance. Critics are calling this punitive. Supporters say it promotes self sufficiency. Either way, it's going to affect a lot of people who are just trying to get by. And then there's the debt ceiling. This bill raises the federal debt limit by $4 trillion. Yes, trillion, with a T. That's got markets rattled. Investors are watching closely, and we've already seen volatility in stocks. The concern is simple. We're not slowing down our borrowing, we're just raising the cap again. And while some argue that's necessary to fund these programs and tax breaks, others see it as a dangerous long-term path. All of this has sparked fierce debate in Washington and across the country. Supporters of the bill say it's a bold, necessary step to reshape the American economy, reduce dependence on government programs, and reward hard work. Opponents argue it's a giveaway to the wealthy and big business, balanced on the backs of the poor and working class. Now, will it actually pass the Senate? That's the final hurdle. Some Republican senators have already voiced opposition, warning about the cost or the drastic social safety net cuts. But unless a significant number of GOP senators flip, this is expected to pass. The momentum is strong, and Trump is framing this as a signature win. He wants this on his resume before the election cycle kicks into high gear. What happens next? If the Senate approves the bill, it heads straight to President Trump's desk for signature. And from there, implementation could begin almost immediately for some elements, particularly the tax provisions and military funding. Other changes, like Medicaid work requirements, would take a few years to roll out, so what does this mean for you? If you work overtime, serve tables, or rely on tips, you might see a bigger paycheck soon. If you rely on Medicaid or SNAP benefits, you'll need to pay close attention to the new requirements and deadlines. If you're concerned about government spending and national debt, well, buckle up, because the numbers are only going higher. And if you're an immigrant or know someone navigating the system, the changes in enforcement and funding are going to make the environment far more intense. This is a turning point in domestic policy. Whether you see it as a step forward or a step back, there's no denying it's a massive change. As always, we'll be watching this closely. The next few weeks are critical. The Senate's vote will determine whether this becomes law and how fast these policies hit the ground. One more thing before we go. This bill is already sparking reactions from everyday Americans.